All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dunk Dynasty Podcast, episode 48. You can almost call it season 2 because we are back fresh off, NBA Finals break, 3 weeks off for ourselves. And now we're back. Plenty happening in the NBA, free agency, trades happening, new season, new leagues, it's all started. And for ourselves as well, we've gone out in free agency too. We've gone to Wellington and got ourselves a free agent. John T. Carmichael, special guest, joining the Dunk Dynasty Podcast. John T. Carmichael, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Happy to be here. Flattened to be on. And we've talked about it a little bit. We've had no shortage of pretty passionate arguments in our group chat for our fantasy league. So it's exciting to do it in person.
This is unreal. It's special times, like I said, when you have someone who's on the opposite side of the spectrum who enjoys the debates and discussions, you got to bring them, and this is massive. So exciting times, plenty for us to discuss, lots to discuss from which teams are going to keep contending, which teams maybe are not going to contend, but plenty to discuss. Jonty, yourself, man, looking at free agency, the way it started, teams who've made trades and drafted well too. Who are you looking at, man, and say, yo, this is the beginning of something special? Or other teams that maybe, for example, have put themselves away from contention by signings or trades that they've made, man?
I think this is a pretty interesting one because overall I don't really believe in them as title contenders because it is pretty on brand to have added a notorious playoff dropper to the roster. But I can't look past what Philly have done this offseason. I think Paul George is a massive upgrade to the roster. He takes a lot of well-deserved criticism for his playoff performances in the past, but nonetheless, it's a pretty valuable addition. I believe in Maxey. I think he's going to continue taking steps, and I really believe in him as a playoff guy. His game just fits well with when things slow down and things get a little tight. I am very interested to see what an Embiid-Paul George combo looks like when it gets to real crunch time late in the season. But at this stage, I think they're the team that's taken the biggest step forward this offseason.
Look at it, yeah, same thing. It's hard to look past Philly because that's massive moves. Getting Paul George is massive move, obviously, and then also Kelly Oubre. I don't know how they got him for that cheap. And then Eric Gordon, I know he's older, but that's still a great move too. But just same thing as you. My biggest concern is that team. I love Embiid. I've wanted to see Embiid win for so long. I've been saying he's maybe the best player or the best fencer, but this team is just so hard to put them into that level because we don't know if Paul George is going to be Paul George in the playoffs. We don't know if Embiid's going to be healthy. Maxey, oh yeah, great stuff, but it's just been one playoff run where we've seen him be the top 2 guy. It's difficult. It's very difficult, which is why for me, I have to go with the Thunder because I thought that now you got Isaiah Hartenstein. That was a great move because you needed a bigger center. You shift Chet to the 4 now, and then you get Caruso as well. And that team defensively now, I think possibly that could be a number 1 defense. I think Minnesota might need to watch out. I think OKC is coming for that number 1 defensive team in not just the West, but in the league. So that'll be my winners.
I'm relatively impressed by Oklahoma City. Not as much as you on kind of one simple point, and that's the $29 million a year for Isaiah Hartenstein. Yes, NBA inflation. It reminds me a lot of 2016, though, where all of these massive contracts got handed out. You had Joakim Noah getting 4 years, $72 million. You had Timothy Mozgov got an absurd amount of money. There were all of these contracts going around that people were like, the cap's just going to go up forever. There's money for days. We're all spending. And the contract in and of itself probably isn't that big a deal. They're going to be fine. Oklahoma City is set up incredibly that, if this contract doesn't work out, they attach 2 first-round picks to him and they kick him off to Sacramento or wherever, role players go to die. But I can't really bring myself to be that in on making Isaiah Hartenstein what feels like damn near a max player. He's a solid guy. We've all picked up Isaiah Hartenstein in our fantasy leagues for a couple of months here and there and loved what he's given us. But he almost lost his starting job again in that playoff series. He's had 2 good months as a starter and he's making $30 million a year for the next 3 years. That's a wild contract.
It's a very crazy contract. And it's the state of the NBA. I mean, there's some crazy contracts going out that you have to pay if you want certain guys. And was that the move? Absolutely. Was it a $30 billion per year sort of move? In other franchises, absolutely not. And that's the problem. You have to overpay to get the guys you want. And if they didn't get Hartenstein, I think that's where your problem was, because there wasn't really another starting level center out there that I think would have complemented this team, the way that they are. Because I think Hartenstein does well, finishes well at the basket, he can rebound well, and most importantly, shifts Chet to the four, where I think, that's where he flourishes more. And you're not using Chet as I thought he did a good job this season, but he's not a five. He shouldn't be guarding Jokic. He should not be guarding any of those big guys. And now he can do his thing at the four, punish mismatches. And that's a team that, wow, they're close to what? Who's the other Twin Towers I was thinking of? Cat and Gobert. That's the one. And now that you've got the ability to neutralize a lot of teams now with that length and that defense.
It is a pretty intriguing fit. I think what I'm a little bit disappointed with OKC this offseason so far, and there's still plenty of time to go. They may still make another move. I loved the Caruso move because that's exactly what they needed. Veteran presence, guy who's won a championship before, guy who's played deep in the playoffs, in those series where everybody gets nervous. You see this year after year after year. Everybody gasses up young teams like crazy for 6 months during the regular season. And then it's the same old crusty veterans coming in and getting it done in playoff time. And it's not sexy. It's not cool to be like, just add old men to your team. Nobody gets amped up about it. But that's what I think OKC need to do. I think the problem I have with it is they have so many draft picks and they have so much capital to make a move, and they had all this cap space and so much flexibility. And the result is, let's make Isaiah Hartenstein not the max anymore, but what feels like a max player. And if this is it, then I don't really see that pushing them over the top of the teams like Dallas, like Minnesota, like the Nuggets. I think the Nuggets, while they've lost some people, I'm a big believer in Jokic. I'm always going to default to the guy that I perceive to be the best player in the league come playoff time. I still kind of can't believe that they lost that series to the Timberwolves. We saw it happen, but my brain still won't compute it. I still 10% deep down believe the Nuggets are the best team in the league. So I don't know. They've not had a bad offseason by any means, and the Hartenstein contract is not something that's going to hinder them in any meaningful way. But I would have liked to see them go a little harder for someone that's had real playoff experience, who's been battle tested. Find a vet. You should probably throw names out there for this sort of stuff. It's hard to say because you never know who's going to come available. You never know what calls teams are making, who they've turned away. It is entirely possible that Sam Presti has been trying to add more veterans like the Caruso trade and just hasn't had any luck with it. So Hartenstein was the best piece on the board. If that's the case, then fair play. But I don't think this move puts them quite over the top in the West.
Because the West that's a bloodbath, as you say, and this is a era where I'm same thing. Looking at Jokic, Jokic feels like this is he feels like what LeBron was in those 2010s, where it's you can do whatever you want, but you're gonna have to beat 23 or 6 as he was when he was in Miami. Same thing as with Jokic now. It's still the same thing. Like, that's still the best team. So any move you make, you gotta is that putting us past Denver and that best player in the world, in my opinion. Same thing. So looking at that move too, you're putting a lot into this young team because they paid Isaiah Joe as well. That's and I thought that could have been money that you could have used to try get. I mean, you probably weren't getting KCP, but someone like that, even a Malik Beasley, just throwing names out there, even a Kelly Oubre, just an additional. So you're really sort of banking and saying, we're going all in on this the homegrown guys, and saying that Lou Dort played in the playoffs 3-4 times, right? SGA's played in the playoffs 4 times. So you're basically saying, okay, we're happy to roll with these guys as our guys. And for a guy like Chet, you've had one playoff experience. You're going to have to elevate pretty quickly. So Thunder, good sort of spot there. Doesn't elevate them. I sort of still have to fall back to the defending Western Conference champions because they just added Klay. And then also Nuggets, I think they're frozen right now just because they've just lost KCP. Well, are they going to trade MPJ to try and get some players back? But the team I look at as well is also the Mavs. Yeah, because Western Conference champions, you get Klay Thompson, you get Najee Marshall. You're sort of looking good. You want another shot creator, and now you get a 20-point per game scorer. That's win-win, But defensively, lose DJJ. That's tough.
it's a fascinating situation where Klay is. I have no idea what to expect out of him this year. It looked so bad at times last year, and I've always been a Klay guy. He's, personality wise, it's hard pressed to dislike the guy. But then play style wise, he's just been the perfect NBA role player, the superstar NBA role player for his whole career. If he can be 60% of that guy. Forget 80%, forget 100% of that guy. 60% of that guy is a massive addition, particularly with the way the Mavs play, with the, Luka-centric offense. So I don't like using the heliocentric offense because it's just become such a cliche word and everybody uses it as such an offhand kind of dismissal of a lot of these players. But they run everything through Luka, and then they've got Kyrie off the ball. Having a guy like Klay, if he can knock down shots, is going to be massive. I'm a huge DJJ guy, my beloved former Heat role players. But the thing with him is in the modern NBA, when you get deep in the playoffs, and I think you saw this with the Celtics losing quote unquote Marcus Smart this offseason. When you have a guy on the floor that a team can just not guard on the perimeter, it inevitably winds up killing your offense in these late playoff series. You just can't play them. And like Derek Jones has been a great defender and has made a hell of a career for himself, and even has some days where he can knock down his threes. But it's never going to be to the point where a team is all that worried about just ignoring him entirely. If Derek Jones takes 12 threes against you in a playoff game, that's a massive win. That's a great result. Even if he makes 6 of them, you've just gotten unlucky. You can trust your process. So I think there's something to be said for removing one of those non-shooters from the floor, especially when it's a wing, I should say. You can have a big that can't shoot, but then that places the impetus on you to have shooters everywhere else around because you can't. In the modern NBA, it's really tough to have 2 non-shooters on the floor in these like playoff series. So, they've addressed that. It's going to be interesting how much that impacts their defense on the other end, but offensively, it's a fascinating fit.
Offensively, it's crazy. It's scary because you've got Luka, Kyrie, Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, and Lively, I assume, should take the role of being the consistent starter this season. Because but still, you still have the 2-headed monster at center, which both Gafford and Lively do an insane job of playing with Luka, playing off Luka, and we know the whole team is based off Luka. It's very scary because in that series against the Celtics, when I was looking back, the main thing I was kept on saying was, man, like, the thing that's really messing them up is, all due respect to Derek Jones Jr., is Derek Jones Jr. And the thing with Klay is Klay can knock down the 3. Can he create his own shot consistently, like to the level of Kyrie or Luka? No, but he can hit shots to the level that makes defenses go, we're not helping. And the worst thing in the world that you can have, so that can happen to you when you playing Luka, is you can't help, because if Luka's going 1-on-1 downhill, game over. And if you double, yeah, now it's double Luka. See what happens. You're kicking out to Klay and Kyrie and PJ Washington. It's some scary hours there. But defensively, that's where it's still going to need to happen, because we saw Luka struggle in the finals, and Klay's lost a step as well. So how are you guys going to cope there?
Yeah, nobody's looking at Kyrie Irving as a lockdown perimeter presence. He can compete here and there, but who knows? It's I wouldn't put, just going back to what I said earlier, I still kind of have the Nuggets as the favorites in the West. After all this, after all the deck chair shuffling around, because this is, like you said earlier, every offseason is thrilling in the NBA. There's always some sort of chaos going on. 3 weeks ago, I never would have thought Paul George was going to be a Philadelphia 76er or Klay Thompson a Maverick. That is insane. But we are sort of getting a little bit broken into all this, where it is pretty usual business now to reach the end of a free agency period, and suddenly you're looking at guys in uniforms that feel like 2K's glitching out. Like, that's the kind of trade that if you saw playing 2K, you'd be like, oh, this is ruining the game. Klay Thompson would never be on the Mavericks. What are we doing here?
Exactly. So it's that's the difference about this, but it's good. It's good to see player movement. But yeah, like I said, Nuggets, I would not be surprised if there's a move coming, because there's no way that a team like that, especially if they've been linked to Westbrook, and we know for sure MPJ, you might need to move him to upgrade. So I wouldn't put it past them to upgrade. So scary hours coming all around the NBA. But if we transition, looking at a team in the West, which is the most high-profile team, probably not in just the West, probably the NBA, because of one LeBron James, who signed. It's not even a max contract, but it's just under max to allow the Lakers more flexibility to go out and sign guys, make trades, all that sort of stuff. LeBron James, a 1-1. So first year fully all in, guaranteed. Then second year he's got the player option. Looking at the Lakers, what does the signing for LeBron mean? What does it do for them? Does it even put them anywhere? What's your thoughts on that one?
I don't see it beyond the fact that obviously signing LeBron James is massive. No, you can't dismiss signing LeBron James in any capacity. But also, nobody ever really thought he was going to leave. Can you imagine if they drafted his son and then he walked off and joined the Cavs? That's not going to happen. So it's a little bit of much ado about nothing for me, where we went into this offseason all expecting LeBron to sign with the Lakers, and LeBron signed with the Lakers. It's playing out pretty much as intended. I think the giving up $3 million is interesting. I don't understand the salary cap machinations of it well enough to know exactly what that enables them to do. I do think there's been a pretty comical amount of applause for him maybe giving up money, not giving up money, then giving up a little bit of money. It's just the classic LeBron coverage where the guy does anything and immediately we're all meant to bow down and praise be to the king. I think the Lakers are still in exactly the same position they were in, which is that come playoff time, rightly or wrongly, I'm never going to feel good betting against LeBron James and Anthony Davis, whatever is around them. I'm a best players guy. When you come to playoff series, I think more often than not, it comes down to how the superstars perform. And even watching a little bit of my childhood, our childhood, die over this past playoffs, where you saw all of the guys that we've grown up watching dominate this time of year just get smoked out of the playoffs in the first round or in the play-ins, and Steph, KD, and LeBron, which my mind is still trying to make sense of. I think this season wouldn't surprise me at all if we do see a little bit of one last hurrah from at least a couple of those guys. And if it's LeBron, that wouldn't surprise me at all. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, having the debate of how long we think LeBron could at the very least be PJ Tucker with passing in the NBA. And it's probably till he's like 48. I can't imagine a point where he couldn't give you if he wanted to, which I assume he does not want to be PJ Tucker with passing. But if he were to stick around just for the sake of sticking around, he'd be 48, and I think LeBron's still giving you 15 good minutes a night.
100%. But when I look at the Lakers, bro, I'm a LeBron fan, openly biggest LeBron fan, love LeBron. But this all the things that was happening, nothing was moving the needle for me, because for me, just looking at that team, it's so far gone, and it might be, I think, so far away from where you actually need to be a championship team, that it's just nothing can happen. Because think about it, they were saying, LeBron, you take a pay cut. Oh, we'll see if we can get James Harden or Paul George or Klay Thompson. And I see all these guys all turn the Lakers down, and it all makes sense why. For me, I'm saying, if I'm Klay Thompson, I'm 34, I'm pretty sure he's 34. Do you want to go to the Lakers where if things go wrong, who's getting the blame? It's not LeBron. It's not AD. It's probably going to be you. And are you going to win with the 40-year-old as your best player? At this point in time, probably not. And it's just so hard to fill the roster. It feels at this point, this is not LeBron of 2007 or 2012, 2013, 2018. This is 40 years old, 2024. This isn't a guy who you can just add in guys who can shoot, and LeBron will take care of everything, get you to the finals. The guy is 40 years old now. It's not the same. And in the Nugget series, like, we saw that he was, at times, I thought was defensively, I thought he was being a liability. I think it's just not the same LeBron anymore. And I think, guys, that's why you had so many guys say, thanks for the offer, but I think I'm going to go somewhere else and see if I can win, So it's hard for the Lakers. I don't see they're going to go anywhere.
Tracking back, this is what Anthony Davis was meant to offset. The whole point of the Anthony Davis trade, and you can't really criticize it because they won a championship. It's going to be the thing that is quite weird to make sense of with LeBron's Lakers era of his career. As winning the title right off the rip, or second year in LA, means, to me at least, that you really have to call it a success no matter what. You win a championship, that's what we play for. That's the whole point of all of this. I think, NBA fans do get a little caught up in other stuff sometimes. instead of just focusing on if you win the ring, that's whatever you did was right. The process can be whatever it is if you get the right result at the end. But where people are going to criticize the LeBron Lakers era, rightfully or wrongly, has been his influence on the team building, and his big cash in all the chips move was Anthony Davis, with the vision of as he got older, Anthony Davis was going to be that number one. LeBron could step back, be, this veteran, brilliant number two who could, come in and have those moments with a couple of minutes to go, hit those shots. This is one of the most impressive things about LeBron's career is for all the talk about him not being clutch originally, later in his career, he's just hit massive shots with regularity. He's become an incredibly clutch player in the second half of his career, Cavs 2016 onwards, and even like a little bit before that. Really, once he left Miami, infuriatingly, he's just hit dagger after dagger. And at that point of your career, that's all you're really asking of these guys. It's the problem Golden State are going to have with Steph too, the thing that Phoenix are going to have to deal with KD. I think they're all in really similar positions, and it's going to be fascinating to watch how the final 2 to 3 years of each of LeBron, Steph, and KD's careers play out, because they all had ideas and goals of what they were going to do. They've all failed tremendously from a team building standpoint and what those goals were, and now they're all in really weird positions.
Yeah, I just look at it and go, the Warriors, for example, with Steph, they're so far. As soon as they couldn't get Paul George, I knew they were far away from a chip. And the Suns, KD, I don't know if you guys are going to win one. It's because you guys are just cashing on 3 guys. But coming back to that LeBron point, all the downfall of the Lakers, it feels like, I don't want to say it, but it is LeBron's fault. That's what I think. Because 2020, after you guys won the championship, right? 2021, you guys go to the playoffs. AD gets injured. So, in my opinion, I was like, AD got injured. You lost 4-2 to the Suns, who went to the finals, right? So, let's bring it back. Let's see if we can just run it back. If it doesn't work mid-season, we can make a trade. No. Everyone's like, LeBron's like, no, let's turn this over. They let go of KCP. Oh, they trade KCP and Kuzma to go get Russell Westbrook. How did that work out for you? Absolutely terrible. Like, that was horrendous. But who was pushing for the trade? Anthony Davis and LeBron said to Rob Pelinka, we'll find a way to make this work. And in my opinion, you got to respect, GM. You got to be like, Pelinka, listen, I'm going to put my foot down. I can see this is not going to work. LeBron, I love you, mate, but we're not making this trade. What happens? They make that trade. 2 years of Westbrook, 2 horrible years. And it's just like that move there shows you right there. We all knew it wasn't going to work. Everyone was saying it. They make that trade. LeBron James, I think, in that situation, messed it up for himself, because Kuzma and KCP went on to win in, Denver. Kuzma is a great 3-and-D player. Imagine if you still had him now. After they won the chip, they got rid of AD. Oh, not AD. They got rid of McGee, Howard, Rondo, Avery Bradley. Like, dude, look where you are now. Nowhere, it's
wild that LeBron hasn't clocked this, but just over and over again, the recipe is LeBron and 3-and-D players, LeBron and shooters, and that's the title teams he's been on, and it works so well. It's a foolproof plan. It's unstoppable. It's what we were talking about with Luka earlier. It's what the Nuggets did with Jokic. If you have one of these playmaking superstars, and it kind of is starting to feel more and more like that is just the model for being an NBA title team. Even Tatum in the finals this year played more of that LeBron, Jokic, Luka type of role as the kind of dominant ball handler, passing out, finding the open players, making the right play, and just causing the defense to scramble. Because when you are a superstar, late in the playoffs, teams are going to be doubling, or they're going to have their best player on you. They're going to be collapsing when you go into the paint, and there's always going to be an open shooter. And this is kind of a valid criticism of what the NBA has become, I think. But now it is really kind of just about hitting your open threes. You've seen it with these Heat runs recently where fans get wound up like crazy because all of a sudden you're watching Gabe Vincent and Max Strus and Caleb Martin knock down these shots and send your team home. But there is a small sample size aspect of playoff basketball where if a guy gets hot for 2 weeks, it puts you in the ground, and that's all you need. It's become a weird kind of subplot of NBA playoff series where the stars are going to be the stars. They're obviously, they have their good series and their bad series, but it comes down to whether these guys knock down the shots.
Yeah, because that's what Kenny Smith said back in the day. He's like, your 1, your 2, and your 3, your top 3 guys. Those are the guys that get you to the big stages. And then 4 and 5 are the guys that can win your games. But the 6 and the 7, those are the guys that win your series. Because they are going to be the ones that are going to need to step up. And that's the thing it comes down to if you're LA, because in this era that you've had with LeBron as a Laker, what was it? In that championship year, you had Avery Bradley, Rondo, Howard, McGee. Like, remember that series against the Trailblazers where they played big to neutralize not the Nuggets series where they played big. McGee, Howard got crazy minutes because they needed to neutralize Jokic. But then in the series before against the Rockets, those guys didn't even see the court because they had Avery Bradley, Rondo, because the Rockets played small. So that team was built to beat anyone. And then you go from that. Also that they could hit threes. You take it to a team like now or like last season where it's really sort of like, you got your top guys. Gabe Vincent really wasn't giving you much. He went away from Florida and he just lost everything. And then, D'Lo, you never know what you're going to get with him, especially come playoff time. Reeves he did a pretty good job, but that team just wasn't built the same. But in addition to that, it's just LeBron's just a lot older, and you're going up against teams now, or who you got? The Luka with the Mavericks, Jokic with the Nuggets, that are just, I hate to say it, but they just, sometimes it comes down to who has the better player. And LeBron, unfortunately, in the West, I don't think he's not on a team that's going to be better than the Mavericks or the Nuggets.
Well, it loops around back to where we started, and it all comes back to this Anthony Davis of it all, where he was meant to be this guy. And every time I close my eyes at night, I see footage of Anthony Davis drilling threes in everybody's face in the bubble. I cannot believe, having watched that guy look like Kevin Durant for the entire time, particularly putting my beloved Miami Heat to the sword. And now I've tuned into a game and the guy can't have water from a boat. It is outrageous how much his career has taken a turn. There was a point there where you would not have been at all unrealistic to say that Anthony Davis was on a top 5, top 10 all-time trajectory. When he was in New Orleans for a while there, and that season where I think he finished second in MVP voting, where he was just unbelievable. He could do it all. He was the first version of what we're seeing with Wembanyama now. Like back then, you watched Anthony Davis, and there was nothing he couldn't do on the basketball court. And now he's a pretty good second option, a pretty great second option, but he's certainly not a one in these late playoff series. And a lot of the Lakers' issues stem back to that, and as well as the lack of shooters. It's not a great spot for them to be in roster-wise. But as a Miami Heat fan and a Lakers hater and a LeBron hater, I just hate to see it. It's just awful.
As a LeBron fan, yeah, it's going to be tough. This season come up will be tough. Maybe AD 32 season. This is, if we're looking at the old biology, this is the last year of his prime. So, yeah, this should be fun, bro. Can't wait for the ride. It should be an enjoyable ride. But looking at a ride that just ended, the Golden State Warriors, a run that lasted 13 years of Klay Thompson there, but I think the actual dynasty itself of winning championships started in 2015. Last one that they won was 2022. 4 championships in that period. Obviously, they won 2 with KD, but they won 1 before him, after him. That dynasty, will be remembered for a long time. Klay Thompson, Draymond, and obviously Steph, the pillars, Steve Kerr. Then you had other guys rotate in between that time. But it's tough to see, man. As much as I was a Warriors hater, I was, still very surprised that they couldn't find a way to bring Klay back, considering that they brought back Draymond and, Klay wasn't asking for as much. He just wanted to feel appreciated. And Klay, bye-bye. You are now a Dallas Maverick. What's your thoughts on that move there and where the Warriors go from here?
I think everybody's thoughts on this particular move or lack thereof do tap into a real how you view basketball sort of question. And I've done my best not to do this over and over again, but to bring it back to my beloved Miami Heat, it is the same thing they're facing with Jimmy Butler now. And do you keep the sentimental star for the sake of keeping them around because you love watching them play and you have all these special memories tied up in the uniform? And I lean on the side of I would always rather keep the guy, even if it is sort of to a detriment of the team, because I don't think you find any Miami Heat fan world over, nobody looks back and is like, oh, thank God we didn't give Dwayne Wade the max in 2016. Everybody goes, why the hell did he ever play in a Bulls uniform? How could we have ever let him play in a Cavs uniform? It feels like this fever dream nightmare that ever happened. And it was all over saving like $5 million. Like you account for state income tax, Dwayne Wade made like $2 million more to go to the Chicago Bulls. What a massive mistake. Nobody looks back at that as being good. And the other part of this that people seem to kind of overlook is, yes, it doesn't really help your team from team building. But you know what else doesn't help? Losing these electric players, losing these great players. Your team's going to suck anyway. I'd rather they suck with guys I love rather than, as fun as the 30-11 Dion Waiters team was. It was a Dion Waiters team. There was nothing that compared to when Dwayne came back and you had this terrible team that was a 9 seed, didn't make the playoffs. And it was as much fun as I've ever had watching basketball. He hit that game winner against Golden State in his final season, had a triple-double in his last game, his second to last game at home, had a great game against Philly. It's the reason Jimmy Butler's in Miami. There's all of these sentimental things that come into how you view sports and how you approach it. So I think the vast majority of Warriors fans will look back on this as a real shame. I also don't think it's to take the rose-colored glasses off and to take the fan off. I think it's probably a smart team building move. I think Klay's contract is going to be pretty ugly by the final year. I land more on the side of maybe Dallas can get 1-2 good years out of him. Who knows? Like, he's got the experience and he's got the body of work that you can't really shut down him being a significant loss. But I also kind of like what Golden State did to replace him. I like Melton. I like Kyle Anderson. I like Buddy Hield for the roles that they're going to play. None of those are massive additions, but I could see a pretty easy argument that all three of them may well be better players than Klay Thompson, if not this year, certainly next year, and certainly 3 years from now.
Oh, I can see Buddy Hield, but I don't know about the other. I don't know about the Melton and Kyle Anderson because I'm like, oh, but the thing is,
knock on Klay, frankly, more than a huge amount of belief in Kyle Anderson and DeAnthony Melton. But like, those are solid NBA role players, and that's what the criteria I think really is for Klay now. It's why I'm not a huge believer in the contract and why, I can't kill the Warriors for letting him go. But I do, if you're putting a gun to my head on it, I do land more on the side of I'd rather suck with my guys than suck with Kyle Anderson and DeAnthony Melton, which is basically what this trade-off is.
Yeah. Because my thing, I was like, looking at it, oh, wait, listen, the way that you were paying Klay to come back, you essentially were going to be saying Klay is our number 2. And I just don't think as a 34-year-old Klay Thompson, he's a number 2. No chance. So that's why I think in Dallas, it's perfect because we know who's the number 1 there. And that number 1 there, he accounts for everything offensively. He'll make all your life so easy. Here in Golden State, you were still going to be paid and played like a number 2 guy. And I just don't think that's where he's at. And we saw what happened last season when he was a starter. It got so bad that he had to be moved to the bench. And that's when things opened up from second half of the season. He was way better. So for Golden State, as much as Mike Dunleavy is crucified for it, it's for right now, it's an all right move, but you're not winning a championship. If I'm being honest, I look at the Golden State team with or without Klay, you weren't going to win a championship. So it's like, what's just making the guy feel appreciated? And the one thing what I saw they said was the final straw was really, they said to him, okay, Klay's team said to the Golden State Warriors, yeah, we'll take the 2 years, 48. We just want to sign it like now, as soon as free agency starts. And then Mike Dunleavy and all them said, no, we'll sign it after we see what happens, which they kind of took as, oh, you guys want to see if you can get Paul George or someone else first, then sign me. So that's when I think that was the final straw. But, bro, yeah, Klay Thompson, I know you want to feel appreciated, but listen, they appreciated you by paying you $190 million, and half of that time you were injured. That's a token right there. I don't see what the difference was in them trying to make the team better by signing you 2 or 3 days later. For me personally, I would not have taken that like crazy, but oh yeah, that's going to make me leave. And now it did make him feel that way, and now he's left. But credit to him, he's gone to a team actually where he's probably in a better position to contend over the next 2 years because he's not asked to be the number 2 guy. He's probably the number 3 guy, even number 4 or 5 guy most nights.
Yeah, I think these things never end gracefully. It's hard to point to any sort of dynasty that has ended with everybody walking home feeling appreciated and valued and still loving each other. It feels like it always comes apart with some hurt feelings, some bitterness, and that's just aging in sports too. These superstars, you've seen it with Russ is probably the best example of it over the past few years, where once he stopped being able to elevate a team, and I think he's one of the ultimate floor raisers in NBA history, where he just guaranteed that he would put you on his back and get you 45 wins no matter who was around him. The trade-off to that is I think he limits you in a playoff setting late on. That has nothing to do with the Warriors, but it's just me getting a shot off at Russell Westbrook. But you've watched him really struggle later on in his career to find a role, to find a way to fit in. And I think that's pretty common. These guys they get to the heights they get to because they have an uncommon and an insane amount of self-belief, an insane amount of confidence, because that's what you need to get to these levels. So when it starts to go for them and it gets to the end of their careers, I can't think of a single superstar where it started to go and they were like, oh, it's starting to go. I'm going to take a step back now. I need to go into a different role. It's always, no, I've still got it. I'm going to find a way. I've got the chip on my shoulder. And sometimes after a few years of whiling through the wilderness, then they start to put it together. But I don't know. It's a tough one. I feel bad for all involved. And as a guy who's really enjoyed watching the Warriors play out, it's a shame that it ends like this. But it always ends like this. It's just the way it goes in NBA.
There's never a storybook ending. There's never a situation where it's like, oh, this guy transitioned and won like championship to end his career as going from a big, like the main guy to being a sixth man on the championship winning team. It never happens like that. It's either you leave when it's all going well, or you stay until the wheels fall off like this, and the wheels did fall off. And for Klay, the one thing I do hope, I hope he should take a page out of Ray Allen's book, where Ray Allen was probably, when he was on the Celtics, in the same position where it was, oh, dramas, is Ray coming back to the Celtics? And he went, nah, you know what, bro, you guys taking your time, I don't feel appreciated. Let me go join the Miami Heat and see what happened there. What I think, one championship, right, 2013, but he hit the shot of all shots. And
rebound Bosch, back out to Allen, bang!
Forever greatest moment, bro. Saved the GOAT's legacy. Thank God for Ray Allen. Bro, so that's why if I'm Klay, I'm like, bro, this is the best for you. You're playing with the 2020s LeBron, literally. The guy is going to make the game so easy for you. Bro, look what happened with Ray Allen. Spoelstra was having the time of his life drawing up 3-point plays. LeBron was talking to Ray Allen. How do you want the ball passed to you in the corner? How do you want the seams and all that? Ray Allen still talks about it to this day. He's like, oh, I've never had, like, only Rondo and LeBron are the two guys who asked me, like, how I want the ball, like, passed to me, all that stuff. And look at the percentages. Same thing with Klay, bro. Like, you go there, you're probably going to enjoy basketball, I'd say, a lot more. And the only downfall is you're not going to get the same amount of shots, which is understandable, but you take that trade-off to be, possibly you're going to a team that just made the finals. You've got a good opportunity to go back there. So it's a win for Klay. Golden State, I probably think it's an L, because you paid Paul that money, paid Wiggins that money, and now Paul's gone. Wiggins has declined crazy quick. Draymond, he's basically year to year at this point. He always comes out and says, oh, I might retire this year. So you never know what's going to happen now for Golden State. And it's sad to see a dynasty die like this, but as you say, all dynasties die. Is just how they die is the thing,
Yeah, absolutely. It's not any indictment on all of the people involved. The dynasty is always going to be. To touch on the second point of this conversation, I can't put them over the Chicago Bulls if we're talking greatest dynasties of all time. I think the 6 rings, it is what it is. They've just got more of a profile, but I don't see any argument against the Warriors being the second greatest of all time, in part because I think they peaked higher than anybody else. The KD Warriors I consider to be the greatest team of all time for a one-season team. I think the longevity of the Bulls puts them over the top, but they peaked as high as any basketball team's ever peaked. We may never see, because of the salary cap fluke that led to them being able to sign Kevin Durant, we may never see a team assembled like that again, where you had 2 MVP level players and 2 borderline top 20, probably even top 15 guys at their peak, in Klay and Draymond, all in the same team at the same time. And it was as good as you would think. They just came out and kicked everybody's ass for the better part of 3 years. KD and Klay tear their ACLs in 2019. So, they don't win that time around. But they were still the best team in the league when healthy that year. It wasn't like that team just fell apart and weren't the same basketball team. Nobody's overcoming 2 major injuries like that in the finals. And it's not an indictment on the Raptors. It's just a realistic view on what the situation was.
Exactly. And that was my question that I had for you. So, looking at the end of the dynasty, right? So you've already said Bulls number 1, okay? So I wanted to see what your thoughts was here. So You've got the Bulls, modern era only. So I'm excluding the 11 championship Celtics from this because that was just a hack. So I've got a team. I've got 5 for you here. So I've got the Bulls. Okay, so you're number 1. Then I've got the Spurs with the Tim Duncan era with the 5 rings. Got the Showtime Lakers with Magic, who won 5 in 11 years. You got the Warriors 4 in 7. Then you've got the Shaq and Kobe Lakers. Rank those dynasties 1 to 5.
All right. I think, giving away, we'll start at the top since I've already given it away. I'm taking the Bulls number 1. The longevity, the peak is right there. If only we could see these things play out. Maybe AI and VR are going to get there eventually where we could see pretty accurate representations of what it might be like. But second, that's where I'm putting the Warriors. I think it's a different conversation if you're talking about the greatest teams of all time as individually one season. I think then they are the number 1 for me. But dynasty wise, I think also because they did it in so many different iterations, albeit with the same 3 as a core. The difference between 2015 and 2022, just such different teams outside of those top 3 guys, the way they were playing, what they were doing, how they did it. Obviously, they had this overwhelming kind of supporting cast and out the gate chemistry. And then 2022 is just Steph coming in and being like, I've got one more in me, which is really was the ultimate legacy defining moment for him. You've seen over and over again that the criticism leveled at him was the lack of a finals MVP. He came in and he ended that forever with that series. And it really was kind of a perfect capper on what this Warriors dynasty was. After that, it is tough between the Lakers and the Spurs. The Magic Kareem Lakers rather than the Shaq Kobe Lakers. The Shaq Kobe Lakers are very much the number 5 in this for me. I can't put them. I think this is more of a 4-team group than a 5-team group there. I think the Shaq Kobe Lakers, I've got a few other periods of history that I would put on par with them, whereas that top 4 is a pretty resounding top 4 to me. I think I'd go the Spurs at number 3 just because of the longevity of it. It's similar to what I was just saying about the Lakers winning, the Warriors winning with so many different iterations. The Spurs just did it in so many different ways and for such a long time. Their run was the longest of any of the teams in this group. They had kind of lots of ebbs and flows in there, but they were just a machine. Like my childhood was just this relentless being beat over the head with Spurs beautiful basketball, and as a Heat fan, it was not a whole lot of fun. It sure as hell wasn't a lot of fun in 2014. They were just absolute mercenaries, and they played this brand of basketball that it was unbelievable. It was so pretty. Even as a hater, you couldn't really hate it. And I can hate on anything.
It was, that was a special. That 2014 finals. That's the thing. You went from winning in 99. Your last one was like 2014. So same thing as the Lakers, the Showtime Lakers, where it's just they won them in basically 3 different decades. So you got to, the Spurs at least. So you got to give some respect to that. And the same guy was your guy throughout the time. Like it was something special. So for me, I'm the same as you. I got Bulls number 1. I had to sneak in Spurs as my number 2. So just because they got the extra championship,
that's unfair.
Yeah,
they
were
top 4, incredible.
That top 4 is so loaded. Where I think Shaq and Kobe Lakers, the only reason I said Shaq and Kobe Lakers might have snuck up for me a little bit higher was just because they 3-peated and the Spurs didn't. I don't think Showtime did either. So that's what. But I still have Shaq and Kobe last. Then I've got Spurs. The only thing change I've got from you is I've got Spurs. Then I've got Actually, no, I've got 2 changes. So I've got Spurs, Showtime Lakers, Warriors at 4, then Shaq and Kobe Lakers. Purely because I have to give the longevity there that they did it for over like a longer period of time. But maybe you actually got to give credit to the Warriors because they did 4 in 7. But also have to say the field was a bit stacked. The deck was stacked for 2 years there with KD. That's just incredibly unfair. Like, come on, man.
It just comes down to weighing the peak versus the longevity, which you can argue either way. I like the peak a little bit more, but it's not unfair to say it is even more impressive to have won titles in 3 different decades. Like you say, that's a crazy statistic, and to do it with the same number 1 guy. Like I think underrated is overused a lot by NBA fans. But Tim Duncan, I think, is the true most underrated player of all time because he is not talked about, I think, in the way he should,
Yeah.
which is as a borderline top 5 all-time player, certainly a top 10 one because he anchored a title team in 3 different decades. Did it as a rookie. The guy's unbelievable.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I feel like Tim Duncan will just never get that appreciation because, like, he wasn't Kobe was a wonder of the world. Let's be honest. Kobe was like, if you ask people in LA, he was like the ninth wonder of the world to them. He was just that guy because he was in your thing. You saw Kobe everywhere. Tim Duncan preferred to be, back of the thing. I'll go win my championships. I'll go do my work, but nah, I don't want to be in the flashing lights. And even when he retired, Kobe, remember, had the big old tour. Paul Pierce tried to have the retirement tour. KD, oh, not KD, Tim Duncan just went.
Love you like that, Paul.
They would ever love you like Kobe. You thought they'd love you like Kobe? Come on, man.
Paul Pierce. Oh, just what a time. What a time in NBA history. The Paul Pierce retirement tour.
Oh, you thought they'd love you like... Oh, I felt bad for him, bro. I really did. And that's the thing, complete difference. Tim Duncan, if Tim Duncan asked for one, he could have got something pretty, decent. But he said, nah, man, we lost the Clippers. Nah, that's it. I'm done. And just leaves. Done for. Yeah. No, nothing. It's good. Tim Duncan just out into the wind. He's gone. So that probably epitomizes why he's underrated. That thing right there shows, why he's underrated, but also the personality that he is probably led to what it is now. He's so underrated, but could be a GOAT power forward. For me, I think he is the GOAT power forward. But yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So I don't know what he did. And the time he did it is just unbelievable. And yeah, I mean, the more I think around it, the more I do see the argument for the Spurs higher up on that list. But I'm still going to go Warriors. Just given to, I'm a huge Steph guy as well. I just think he is the modern Tim Duncan in that regard. Like what we were talking about earlier with LeBron kind of getting in his own way on a team building standpoint. What Steph and Tim Duncan give you is just so underrated in terms of taking the hands off and letting the people who are employed to build the teams. We've seen over and over again in NBA history that superstars tend to be pretty terrible talent evaluators. There's not a lot of superstar NBA players that really nailed what they needed in the supporting cast. The guys who have had the most success often just took their hands off the wheel, worried about the basketball and letting their GMs build the teams. And that's a really underrated characteristic. On the flip side, though, one of my big frustrations with Steph through a lot of these early 2020s is that he probably should have taken a few more pages out of LeBron's book and leaned a little harder on forcing the front office to trade away the young assets and get better and help him. It is unbelievable to me that they still won a title despite that 2 timelines BS that they were trying to put together. But imagine what they could have done if they cashed in those chips and when they had this massive war chest of draft picks and valuable young assets that became nothing, really. I mean, Kuminga is fine as a young player. We may well see them do it with Lowry. I think that's an interesting subplot of what remains of free agency. Do the Warriors wind up finding a just change of direction here? Because like we've touched on a little bit, they're not winning a title with this core currently. They are one of the teams that desperately need a shake-up. Lauri Markkanen would do a lot for that. I don't know how realistic that is. I don't know how real I really believe Utah's interest in trading him is. I think Danny Ainge loves to float a player out there and not trade them. And it's just kind of his off-season routine. Who knows? They're in a fascinating spot all around.
Yeah, that's going to be very interesting what happens. And like you say, Lauri Markkanen, he is going to be interesting because, yeah, we know what Danny Ainge is like. I think Danny Ainge is probably the stingiest GM. He will get which is smart. That's his role, right? It's get my team as best, get as much as I possibly can for my star guy. And he's sitting on an asset that a lot of teams want. So float him out there and see what you can do.
But he left Boston. Someone else got in there and made the trades and maybe overpaid at the time, and now they have a ring for it. There is something to be said, I think, for certain GMs of this sort of Danny Ainge. It's what I don't love about Sam Presti. I think you need to overpay sometimes. You need to cash in your assets for what is, quote unquote, a bad deal some of the time. what is ridiculous about Brad Stevens is he did that and they turned out to be underpays and great deals. It's infuriating as someone that hates the Celtics with a burning passion. I cannot believe the trades that they've swung off. But it came from a place of not everybody was all that, like, those weren't always home run trades. There's been some revisionist history about, oh, of course, Porzingis and Drew Holiday were going to be amazing. Drew Holiday got barbecued by Jimmy all of that playoff series, and Porzingis had never been healthy for a playoffs before. It was not written in the stars that those moves were going to work out, but they took the risk, they did it, and now they have a title.
That's the thing. You got to have, at some point in time, you got to swing. You have to swing the bat and say, listen, I'm going to try to go for the home run. And if I miss, I have to be comfortable and say, okay, it didn't work out for me. And that's sometimes, maybe that's probably what Pelinka was thinking with getting Westbrook. Oh, it's the home run move. But at some point in time, if you are a team like OKC as well, you have to swing and go, let's see if we can try and make that move that pushes us over the edge. And that's, sometimes you make it, sometimes you don't. And with the Warriors, as you say, with Steph, would have been, imagine at that point in time, Kuminga, they had Wiseman as well there. You could have turned those guys into someone. Bradley Beal, remember at the time, was looking at being traded. I don't know if that matches with the timeline of Mitchell, but there was times where there were stars available and you had these guys, but you were so adamant to say, we want to push because we think Kuminga is going to become this. We think Wiseman is our number two pick. He's going to become this. And you didn't swing. Now Wiseman is what? He's gone to the Pistons, and now he's just signed with the Pacers. Paul has been traded. Wiggins has declined. And, credit to Kuminga, he's exploded. But, could you have got someone better? Probably,
Yeah.
Yeah. But transitioning to last team, man, the Clippers. They are a team that tried to swing and they tried to go for the biggest home run. And we look back to 2019, that day in June or July, where we all got the notification and it was Paul George is going to the Los Angeles Clippers with Kawhi Leonard. And they've been there for 5 years. One conference finals appearance, no NBA finals appearance. After all that expectation, looking at that trade, looking at what that team did, we know for sure they underachieved, but looking at the grand scheme of things, looking at everything around that, do you think that was the worst trade in NBA history, given what they gave up and what they got out of it?
No, I actually think they've been criticized way too much for this trade retroactively. For starters, because it was a trade for Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Fundamentally, that's what they were doing. I think it's disingenuous the way some people present the trade because it was for the two of them. So right off the bat, that makes it asset-wise look a little bit more realistic. And then we are playing the outcomes because that's what we do with the NBA. But I think it's a move you'd make again, touching on what we were just saying about teams going all in at the right time. I don't think there's anything wrong with the Clippers process. The result has been a disaster. It has gone wrong in so many different ways. To get one conference finals appearance out of it is just so disappointing. But a lot of it was to do with health, which admittedly we all saw coming. It was always a bit, all right, you're going to pair Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. That's going to be dicey whether they can ever stay healthy or not. But I don't really have any problem with what they did, ultimately. They went all in on two superstars to take their team to the next level. It didn't work, but it's a move that I would push teams to make generally. At the time, nobody saw Shea becoming what he's become. That changes it. There's kind of 2 points I'm making here, and that the move itself at the time, I have no problem with. Obviously, we all have eyes. The way it's played out, it's been a disaster. But I think if you're talking about the worst trades of all time, it's got to be more things that were a bad idea from jump. Things that you saw, you got the notification, you're like, that's a disaster. The one that immediately comes to mind is the Brooklyn Nets Celtics trade that landed Boston, Tatum, and Brown. That's the worst trade of all time. That was dumb at the start. It played out dumb, and now they've got a dynasty out of it. I'm anti-tanking, but I'm pro-tanking if you can pull off one of the great heists in NBA history. And also, the Celtics didn't even really tank. They were bad. It's a little bit similar to what OKC have done, where they were bad for like 2-3 years, but they've turned it around really quick. It's not that Philadelphia, Sacramento of the 2010s, Pistons now. What I think when I think tanking is these really elongated periods of being absolutely horrendous. And then when you try to turn it around, you've got these players that have just got losing habits from years and years of playing terrible basketball. And you can't just flick a switch. It's why I like what OKC are doing generally, but also would wish they'd push it even more to really go in on being a contender now, maximize the playoff experience. Because you look at Boston, they were over and over again banging against the wall in the playoffs, losing in these big moments, but it gave them the experience. Eventually, they got over the hump. That's how it works. Teams don't just show up and win titles. They lose and they lose and they lose and they suffer these heartbreaks and they wind up eventually breaking through. You saw it with the Nuggets. You've seen it over and over again. So to loop back off that sidetrack, I don't think the Clippers trade was that bad in terms of the process. I really think if you have that opportunity as a franchise to bring in two superstars in their primes, one of them fresh off a finals MVP, like that never happens. There's never the finals MVP, best player on the title team, available in free agency. And you were trading for that guy too. So yeah, you gave up a brilliant young talent. You gave away a bunch of draft picks. It didn't work. That sucked. But I can't really pan them for it. I'd do that trade tomorrow.
Yeah, because if you look at it where it was in 2019, that was Paul George, I think, was coming off a season where he was, third in MVP race? So that's at that time, it was, we've got if we're going by the MVP race, we have a top 3 player in the league going with the guy who just won finals MVP, guys. And that team, they had Pat Bev, Lou Williams, Montrez. They had a team. Which is why you had Pat Bev talking crazy in the casino. Oh, yeah, we're going to the finals. We're going to the finals. Yeah, we all thought they were going to the finals because remember, we were all saying, this is unfair. Like, you can't, bro, what is this team? This team is crazy. So then we were saying, okay, nah, this is crazy. But now it's easy to say it because we saw how it panned out. But a lot of for me, I actually don't even put a lot of the blame on PG. Obviously, I know PG, he's came in as he was the guy, supposed to be the number 2 guy. But PG, I think, has actually done probably what he was supposed to do. Maybe you can say he underachieved a little bit. I don't really blame him because I'm looking at it. Kawhi has not been available when you need him the most. Because if I'm paying a star, I'm paying you to show up for me in the playoffs. That's where I want you. Which is why, as much as I criticize Jimmy Butler for not showing up in the regular season, at least he shuts me up in the playoffs because he does stuff. All these other guys we've seen, guys that maybe aren't regular season guys, they come out in the playoffs and they do their thing. This is a guy who, you pay him to be there. Regular season, he's not really there. Then playoffs, he's getting injured. So it's like, where am I getting you, to help me? Because in the regular season, are you helping me get a good record? Yeah, sometimes when you're healthy, but it's probably more so because PG was keeping us afloat some of those years. And playoff time, Kawhi, 2021, where were you? Missing in the conference finals. PG managed to get that series to 6 games. Then what was it? This year again, Kawhi gets injured. Last season, he was injured. It's just like, bro, PG, I think, did as much as he possibly could have done. Probably underachieved. Okay, cool. But I put more of an emphasis, put the blame, probably way more on Kawhi being unavailable and comes back to health.
Well, look, bottom line, what's really great to see now after Paul George having to deal with a superstar who's often injured and really available is for him to change teams and now have a super reliable, healthy superstar who's always ready to go for the playoffs and always available in the regular season. Sorry, Paul. It's tough out here.
Paul George went from literally the same. He went from just copy and paste of this situation from one star who's, regular season, he might be, playoff time, he's not going to be there. And Joel Embiid, I love Joel. I really love Joel. I want to see him win. But that's why, same thing, I look at Paul George and I go, buddy, you probably didn't upgrade as much as you think you did. You really didn't. Because, I love my boy, but I got to judge the future based on what I've seen in the past. And
simultaneously, I think he's probably made the right decision both times. And you just look at it and you go, I know how this movie's going to play out. Like, the odds of Joel Embiid and Paul George being healthy late in the playoffs are so minuscule. There's just no way. It's the same thing as Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. But it's an interesting point that you make. Paul George probably gets a passing grade for his time in LA. I don't think he was all that bad. Yes, they had the notorious blownouts. They had the blown 3-1 lead. But, it's not really his fault. He was meant to be the second fiddle. He was meant to be the Robin to Kawhi's Batman, and Batman was just never there. And I don't know, man. Kawhi is a weird NBA legacy. He's going to be a weird player to make sense of all time because he peaked so high, and when he was there, he was so reliable and so solid. But then he was just really ever there. But he was there enough to win 2 championships and 2 finals MVPs. So who knows? Like Clippers fans are not going to build a statue for Kawhi Leonard, but he's probably a top 25 player all time.
Yeah, it's going to be. That's the thing. You're going to see in a couple of years' time, people could be arguing, oh, yeah, like who's your top five, who's your top 5 small forwards? And you look at it, you're like, bro, this guy probably is not going to get to 20,000 points, but he's got 2 championships and 2 finals MVPs. And then you look at other guys who have like Carmelo, you'll be like, if you just look at straight points, kids will go, bro, this guy with 26,000 points, how is he not better than this other guy? Well, the other guy won the finals twice, and he got 2 finals MVPs. So as you say, one of the weirdest legacies to judge because playoffs that's where a lot of that legacy is made for Kawhi. Yeah. And I don't think he's even made. Oh, no, I think he made first team All-NBA twice or once, but same thing. Not a lot of All-NBA appearances there because of the injuries in the regular season.
Yeah, he's I don't know. It's gonna be now. He's in a really interesting spot. The Clippers in general, what they do from here, where they go from here, don't have an answer. You can't rely on Kawhi to carry you through a regular season, so you need one of those regular season innings eaters, which should probably be the title of James Harden's autobiography. But at this point of his career, I don't know if Harden can still do the guarantee you a top 5 offense all year long thing. So you've got this Harden and Kawhi duo, which, would have been lethal in 2017, but in 2024 going on 2025, I don't really fear either of them, much like Paul George and Embiid. There's just no way both of them are healthy come playoff time. Yeah. But I don't know. I said that about Porzingis too, and we just watched Porzingis, albeit injured in the finals, come right when they needed him. So sometimes these things do play out. Who knows what's in store for the Clippers?
All right. But yeah, and the Clippers have built GG's, man. That is good. That is a take on the first bit of free agency. I know there's still plenty to discuss, so it will be good they'll come to you guys on the next episode because I believe for sure there'll be some more trades and signings that have been made. So exciting. Jonty, it was exciting to have you, man. Episode 48. Yeah, happy new on, man.
Here. Thank you for having me. That was a lot of fun. Hopefully we will do it again.
Oh, buddy, I hope we do. And I hope by the time we do there's a move from Miami. Miami do something. Because as you say, I want to listen, as much as I talk smack about the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler, the league is better when LA, Miami, New York, the pillars of the NBA, these teams have been around, are doing well. So, yeah.
So right. Big markets, underrated. I've had one season of Oklahoma City and Minnesota and Indiana going deep in the playoffs. I never want to see that again. Get me back to my beautiful big markets.
Take me back. And with that being said, we shall catch you on the next episode of the Dunk Dynasty Podcast. Over and out. Episode 49 coming your way.